Hello and welcome to the Simple Politics podcast. I'm Diane Daniels and I am back refreshed and raring to go after a week's holiday. Last week, amazing.
Woohoo!
Oh, I love the woos. Last week I had the pleasure of being a listener. I listened to Tiernan, our guest co-host, and Tatton. And I have to say, Tatton, I smiled the whole way through it.
You smiled.
Uh, Definitely, yeah. It was really fun.
It
Yeah.
was hilarious, Diane.
Yes.
And you smiled.
Yeah. I mean,
Like you're laughing now. Like you're not hard to make laugh. Like you're laughing now. And then when T's in town, and let's face it, the whole thing was a shambles. No one learned anything about politics last week, but it was quite funny. And you
it was.
smiled.
I laughed. I audibly
Oh, here
laughed.
we go. Here we
Audibly laughed.
go. Revisionist history.
No, definitely, it was great. It was really, really good, and I think especially um, our Patreon listeners will have loved it.
Yes, they will. And in fact, some we got a few people joining us on Patreon last week. I think that they were just. I think I can
Mm.
only imagine that the lovely people who joined last week were. It was more in hope than expectation that Diane would come back, and if there's more money in the pot, they were thinking to themselves, Diane will come back, and we never have to listen to Tiernan and Tatton ever again. Here's some money to make it stop.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
very expensive.
no, thank you very much to those. There's a couple of people who joined. That's really kind of you. And it's lovely to have you in the Patreon community because, like I say, every week that Diane reminds me, our Patreon allows this podcast to happen. I hate doing these little kind of bits where I'm literally asking you for money. That's not what SP is about. That's not what this podcast's about. It's not what I'm about. But we need to pay for this podcast to run. I was joking, that's not paying Diane. Diane gets not
I'm
a penny
yes,
for recording
no,
this.
no.
It's not paying me. I certainly don't get any money for recording this. It's about paying for it to be edited and put together nicely so you don't hear all of the bad bits. And trust me, there are some bad, but imagine what you're missing. If you're
Mm.
listening to the good stuff, imagine what's being cut. And yeah, so it allows us to do that. We're asking for your Patreon money. www.simplepolitics.com.
Forward
No.
slash.
But no. I gave them the complete wrong
Patreon.com.
address. www.patreon.com/simple politics. Everyone's got Patreons. Everyone does this all the time. There are tiers. You can get prizes. You get to listen to the whole thing unedited. Without any adverts, you get the video. As soon as we've done it, basically the video goes up. Lottie throws the video up pretty much unedited. So you do get to see the bad bits and presumably then unsubscribe your Patreon and burn your computer for it having ever existed. Your support means the world. Like seriously, we love doing the podcast, but your support, yeah, I mean, it changes everything. And of course, before we leave this bit, I know that even £3 a month is a lot of money to some people. I mean, like if you can't make it work, that's fine. Please, tell people about us. If you enjoy this podcast, then maybe your weird uncle will also enjoy this podcast. So why not drop him a line? I'd say it's Father's Day coming up soon. Maybe your father will like the podcast. And if you don't speak to your father, if your father is dead to you, maybe you can punish them by recommending this podcast. And then they'll listen to it and go, "What was that?" And you will have won a victory for estranged children everywhere.
Wow. There we go. Didn't know that's where we were going this week, but
Me neither.
you you can never tell.
Nope. No, I just start talking.
Fine. Great. Well, let's move swiftly on to the first section where we look at top posts of the week. Let's talk about what you've all been talking about. And here's what's been big on socials since last time round. So, Tatum, what's in at number 3?
Just to break there, hi Patreon people, you get to see this. Lottie, you need to cut this out from everyone else. What order are we doing this in?
So, I've changed it to be you on paternity because it's top, but I can do paternity if you want. I'm easy.
Oh, I mean, I'd really like to see reform.
Yep, that's totally fine. They're very, very
Um,
close. They're pretty much this close. So,
they're pretty much the same, are they? Okay, so if you do paternity,
yep.
um,
But
and I'll
you're
do the U-turn.
cool. So
Okay,
you
yeah, cool, 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 cool,
go, go,
cool.
go.
So that's a little behind the scenes there for you, Patreon people. Are you lucky? Lucky you.
Okay, Tatton, what's in at 3?
In at 3 this week is the news that the government has changed its winter fuel plans for pensioners. In fact, that's not what the post was. Diane's been away on holiday. She doesn't know what she's talking about. They announced the change in plans a long time ago. They said that more pensioners would get the winter fuel payments. And now this week it was announced that more pensioners, 35 pensioners have £35,000 a year income, get it. Um, it's a hot mess about individuals and households and who gets what, and if one person in the household gets 35 over 35 grand as the other person. Honestly, it's really complicated.
Mm,
But we always say on this show, we always say it's the margins that are complicated,
mm,
right? If you don't earn anything like £35,000, if you don't get any £35,000 income, you're gonna get the winter fuel allowance. If you're on the line, if you're balancing, if one of you does, one of you doesn't, then it's complicated. But even then, the way it works is literally everyone's going to get paid this money,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Everyone, David Attenborough, bang, £200, £300 into his bank account,
Oh,
right?
300 over 80.
300
Yeah.
over 80,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
£300.
yeah.
Well, because the guy's getting a load of income, they're going to take it back through tax. And I mean, means testing things is a nightmare. Like it's
Mm,
a real nightmare. And it's going to cost them an extra £1.25 billion to pay all these extra things. And then it's like £500,000 extra to pay everybody else.
mm,
I think
mm.
that it will cost them £500,000 to police it, to do all the admin and work it all out, or not far off. I think it wouldn't be much more expensive to give it to everyone again, but they ideologically don't want to.
Yeah,
They don't want Joanna Lumley
yeah.
to be getting that extra money, and that's the logical point. And also, this is a massive U-turn. They said this is what we need to do,
Mm,
and then all the voters went, "Oh, it's not what we want to do." And they went, "Oh, did we say it's what we need to do?" Well, because we've been so good at the money, it's all fine now. But literally everything, all the signs aren't very good for the
mm.
money. So I don't know how they've done well for the money. I
There
think
was
we'll
no
talk about spending later.
Yeah, there was no answer on where this is funded from though, right? This is we might learn more about that in the spending review later, but
I don't know. I don't think we will. I
mm.
said on the group chat earlier, is the Klarna spending review. We're checking out with Klarna on this. We go, yeah, like, oh yeah, I want to spend it now. I want this thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't got any money. Click check out with Klarna. Like, there's no clarity on where it's coming from whatsoever. And you know what the Labour Party say about the Conservative Party? They didn't like their unfunded spending commission, unfunded spending
Commitments.
commitments. Yes, thank you very much. Hello, Patreon. Thank you very much. Yeah, the commitments, they don't like it.
Mm,
And then this is a completely unfunded commitment.
mm, mm.
Or they can say, "Oh no, we have got funding. We're just not going to tell you what it is till my girlfriend goes to another school. You
Yeah.
don't know her."
Definitely don't know her. Yeah,
No.
absolutely. Yeah. Okay, but yeah, good news for some pensioners anyway. So that's
Oh, yeah, I mean, like, the pensioners who missed out last time, but
yeah,
actually really needed it and
really
found it
need
hard
it.
time, it's great news for them, yeah.
Yeah, fab. Okay, we'll move on to post number two. And post number two this week was all about paternity and how far we fall behind other countries, other developed countries who are comparable. Um, in the UK, if you don't know, you might never have had to deal with maternity or know about it, but it's 2 weeks in essence, 2 weeks statutory pay that most people would be entitled to or get. And that's anyone. It's applies to all partners of uh, uh, anyone who's having a baby. So it's government funded and it allows people to take 2 weeks off. Now that seems to have not kept up with where we are as a society in terms of splitting parental roles, in terms of cost of living, in terms of just a lot of things. It, for a long time, campaigns by numerous groups, in particularly, one that gets mentioned quite a lot on our Instagram is Pregnant Not Screwed, or Pregnant Then Screwed. There's lots and lots of groups campaigning for change in this because they say that last time they surveyed a huge number of people, up to 70% of people weren't even taking the 2 weeks because either they couldn't afford to or there were some other reasons that stipulated that they wouldn't even take that 2 weeks initial kind of support and bonding as a family. Um, and when you look at those places, in Spain, in France, and there's kind of like 16-week periods. There's all sorts of other stuff built in.
So really, 16 weeks?
Yeah, in
Goodness
some
me.
countries it's 16 weeks. Yeah, it's like, and it's a choice, right? Some people might not take that full time, some people might split it. They do all sorts of things. So, um but it's really, really difficult at the start. It can be really difficult, and people in our comment section have talked about, and this is my experience as well. Um you might have had a really complicated birth, C-sections, there could be lots of things going on. We don't necessarily live near our parents anymore. That's changed as a society, Um, we don't have that intergenerational help that we used to necessarily. And so this stuff really matters. And it also matters because it's about splitting roles in households and that not seeming fair. So the MP's report, it's the Women's and Equality Committee who did this report, and they're putting pressure on to increase the statutory paternity to 6 weeks and to make that 90% of pay, which still isn't a lot maybe, but to increase that to 6 weeks just to help, and also to look at reasons why some there are some demographic groups who still don't take this 2 weeks even when it's available currently, and why that is. So I think this is definitely one to watch. There's a kind of protest happening at Westminster today about it as well. There are things developing, and the government said they are reviewing it. Not that they'll do all the things that have come in the report, but they are reviewing it. So,
And select committee reports, this will be a bit technical.
mhm.
That's a group of MPs who've been away looking at this and talking to fathers and employers and mothers, presumably, and whatever, whoever else, schools, whatever. They put together a report, and almost always the government says, "Well, thanks for this. We're not going to do anything," and then actually does a lot of the things that have been in. I've got two questions, Diane. Well, I mean, no,
Yeah.
one's an observation. When my eldest was born, I used annual leave. I used all my
Mhm.
annual leave and stacked it after. And the employer was really nice and said I didn't have to book in the annual leave in the same way, so it could be flexible depending on when the baby was born.
Mm,
The employer was Parliament at that time. Um, and that was nice. It gave me a really good
mm,
amount of time at home with a newborn. And it is, I mean, it's really hard. You've had this life, the two of you, for years and well, however long. and then suddenly there's a baby in the house. I mean, I remember thinking, like, when's someone going to come and take this baby away? Like it felt impossible that it was just there, and and she's like 15 next month.
Yeah.
And still no one's come to take her away. But I'm increasingly keen on someone taking her away. So we'll see. But that did mean that I then didn't have any leave for the rest of the year. I was in at work every day for
Mm.
the rest of like the whole other leave year. Like that was it, which was tough. But shared parental leave is a thing,
Yes,
right?
it is, but apparently the complexity of it and the fact that, for example, self-employed people aren't even a thing in it, just means that a lot
Mhm.
of people aren't taking it up. There's still barriers to that. It is a thing, but it's not as good as it could be.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah. So, all in the mix, and we'll see what comes out of that. But
we'll see what
we'll
comes up.
we'll definitely be reporting on it because we know lots of people on the page are keen.
Just before we finish
Mhm.
on this one, every day that a presumably a father or a father figure or whoever it is gets paternity leave, the employer is without them.
Mhm.
And that's fine if you're a big company. If you're a small company that has maybe 3 or 4 employees, the longer that statutory paternity is in, the harder it is to cover. And I just want to say that because there is a flip side to it. Like it would be great. I took a long time with Caitlin when she was born because it was important, right? And I had a good employer. There was a big loads of people. They were able to cover. It might not. It wouldn't be the same for small companies, and so that's where paternity leave discussion
Mhm.
is harder. It's not
Yeah.
as simple as just take the time, because people in jobs are doing useful jobs mostly.
Mm.
Less so Diane, but most people in jobs do useful things.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is. It's really complex, actually, when you drill down into it. But in principle, the principle is yes,
Sure,
everybody should have
sure,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. And if that was our number two, what could possibly be at number one this week?
Oh, in at one. Listen, I don't. You shouldn't laugh. But in at one was Zia Yusuf, who on Thursday, I think it was, resigned from Reform in a bit of a strop, including saying it's no longer a good use of my time trying to get this lot elected, right? And I was like, oh, because he's been a big figure. In fact, Zia Yusuf, I don't know if you've been paying attention to this, but Zia Yusuf has been increasingly, it was increasingly the Farage and Yusuf show. Richard Tice
Mm,
being pushed out. James McMurdoch is such an awful person that even Reform are like, oh, we don't really want him to be
mm,
part of the party. He sits near them in Parliament, but not really near. We never hear his name. Anyway, Zia Yusuf had resigned. That was a shock. And then on Saturday, I was going out for dinner with my wife to be, and I got a mess, and I saw the notification that Zia Yusuf has come back to the party. And I laughed out loud and then started trying to write a post on my phone. It's really hard to do on your phone. And Katie was shouting at me that we had to go, but I'm doing this thing on my phone. And yeah, so he's back and he's going to lead Doge. And he has made like a really full apology. He's like, I was exhausted. I shouldn't have sent those messages. I was you know, it was a mistake. I regret them. I wish I hadn't sent them. Blah, blah, blah. He's made a really full apology. And in fact, what's now happened is the role has been split. He was chair of the party,
mhm.
and he's now going to be working, doing the stuff for the party. And this other fella, David, Dr. Bull or something,
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
he is going to be the chair. Now, if you've ever watched Reform speeches, and again, where have you been? He's always the warm up guy. He's always introducing, he's always chatting to the crowd. He's a TV presenter and he's always very relaxed and chill and whatever. He did Most Haunted on Living TV.
Wow.
Um,
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
as well as Newsround, John Craver's Newsround. He's done all kinds of stuff. But he is taking the kind of PR, the front of house kind of role that Zia Yusuf used to have. And
Mhm.
he's going to travel around and speak to all of the reform groups, membership groups, and whatever, local parties, going to go around, speak to all of them, enthuse them, get them going, have a nice time. He's going to drink a lot of warm white wine at these things and eat a lot of sausage rolls. And he's going to be a kind of hype man for the party, which is often how the party chair role goes.
Works. Yeah,
Well,
yeah. Mm.
while Zia Yusuf is going to be using his business brain
Mhm.
to do the Doge thing.
Is that how we say it? Doge? I
Yeah,
don't know. I genuinely don't know. Doge.
yeah,
Okay.
Doge is what
Doge.
they say.
Mhm.
And they were said, God, come on, why are you just trying to be Musk? And they said
Mhm.
that they tried to call it different things,
Mhm.
but everyone knows Doge, and that's what everyone else has called it. So they're like, why fight it? We'll just call it that. Like
Mm.
rather than them trying. That's what they say. I mean,
The like the efficiency guy or the
yeah, I mean
whatever.
exactly that's
Yeah.
it. And then just two final points on reform.
Mm.
One, both on Nigel Farage. Um, one, he was saying that he was the first party leader to be turned on by Elon Musk. And he survived that. He was a
Okay.
trailblazer. He said he was a
Right.
trailblazer for being turned to withstand that. I mean, he was joking, of course. He was being quite funny, but this is the thing. And I made a TikTok about this because he made this speech with Zia Yusuf, which could have looked really silly.
Mhm.
Really, the whole thing could have looked really silly. And then he stood at the podium and he took questions from, I think, 24, 25 members of the press. And for each one, he listens to the question, he thought, he responded openly, eye contact, happy with what he had said. He answered every single question in a full and, we can only presume, honest way. And a lot of people don't agree with reforms policies. Like a lot of people don't agree with reforms
Yeah.
policies.
Absolutely.
But I would like Keir Starmer a hell of a lot more if he stood and answered questions in the way that Nigel Farage just stood and answered questions. And also, Reform are the only party to invite us to press conferences. No other parties do.
I think they
You
invite
know,
everyone, to be fair. I think
yeah, yeah, no, damn straight. You
yeah.
know,
I mean,
but
they're all about a crowd, aren't they?
but but they yeah,
Mm.
they want a crowd and then they want to
Mm.
speak to that crowd. Not like Not like when Keir Starmer stands in front of lots of factory workers who all have to stand really still while he's making this speech, where he's literally using this country's working people as a backdrop, like as wordless nothing, right? To a select group of people. Reform are asking any media to come down and they'll take questions from anyone and answer them.
Mm.
That regardless of policy, that is something that every other political party could learn from.
Mm.
Everyone else, because it's open and it's honest and it's direct and it's engaging.
I do love the questions bit. I watched you watched Reform for SP yesterday. I watched Keir Starmer, um, talking about nuclear and apprentices, and it was a very different experience as we've discussed. Um, but the question, almost more than than the set speech, because that's been trailed, it's been leaked a bit in the
Mhm.
press, it's been whatever. It's the questions are the bit you look forward to.
Yeah, 100%.
100%.
But he bats them away, doesn't he? Like Keir
Does.
Starmer bats them away. Like, I mean, look at PMQs. But also when journalists come, well, it's because this country's doing so well. Like it was like, what? Hang on,
Mm.
are we? But he won't engage in that, and that's
Yeah.
and that's the difference. And of course, it's different when you're in power.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
But Starmer was like that when he was in opposition as well.
Mm.
Badnock doesn't answer questions particularly now. I'm,
Mm.
I'm not even sure if Badnock has press conferences,
Not that we've been
to be
invited
honest.
to, but if you're listening.
That doesn't mean if you're listening. Jenrick's been having press conferences, hasn't he? In his alternative world Conservative Party.
Yes.
I love that he's just pretending he won. Like
Yeah.
he's
Yeah. Yeah, he is slightly. He is. Yes.
you got to
Anyway.
admire that guy for that. Although Nigel Farage said he was going to start lending him his clothes because Jerry was trying to be so much like Farage. Farage was going to lend him his clothes,
Wow.
which I mean, yeah, it's not how I dress.
Yeah.
Um, I think reform is fascinating
Mm.
because they're a new thing in our politics and they behave a different way and they don't do things the same way. And looking at that, I think is fascinating.
Mm. Yeah, and how others respond to it. Definitely. Right. It's time for some questions. Yeah,
Ooh.
let's have a rummage in the mailbag. I've picked 3 out for this week. We did have loads more. We had a really good week this week. But I am going to ask 3. So the
Ooh.
first one is from Hannah.
Hello,
Um,
Anna.
Hannah,
Hannah?
Hannah,
Hannah.
Hannah with an H. So Hannah asks, she says, "What are our thoughts about?" And she calls it asymmetrical devolution, which I love. Because I'd never heard that phrase before. But she said basically, you've got Wales, and a lot of
Mhm,
stuff that happens covers England and Wales. So a lot of bills that come through are England and Wales.
mhm.
But Scotland seems to have so much more power over their own laws and finances. Why is that, and how does that affect things in the UK?
So, devolution in 1997 was set about by Tony Blair. And because at that point there was no everything was Westminster.
Mm,
So the whole of all Scottish policy was run by the Minister for Scotland.
mm,
And everything would come through them. And Tony Blair was like, this doesn't work. We need decisions to be made by people who are closer to the ground than this. And Scotland had was always designed to be a more powerful thing. It was the Scottish government, a member of the Scottish Parliament, an MSP,
yeah.
right? Um, and there were referendums at this point in Scotland and Wales about what they wanted. Scotland, because that was there, and we had Holyrood, although that building took about 25 years to build, so they were kind of doing it intense for a while. But now they have their lovely building, and that's there. And MSP is a national, like, excuse me, MSP is a national news, as in across the country, across the UK, rather than just in Scotland. What's going on there? Nicola Sturgeon, for example, is a
Oh,
very
yeah.
famous
Mhm,
leader. And then in Wales, you got the Senedd,
mm,
which used to be called the Welsh Assembly. It
mhm.
was deliberately a lighter touch organization. It is now
Okay.
called. It is now government and parliament, and it's called the Senedd. But it was never designed to be as independent as Scotland.
Mhm,
I'm not sure of the reasons for that, I'm afraid. But it was always designed to have fewer powers and then more from Westminster. Maybe it's because it's a smaller country in terms of population, and Scotland is up there. I don't want to say it's got less of an identity as Scotland. I don't think that's true. I think the Welsh identity is really clear, as is the Scottish, and then Northern Ireland too. I mean, Northern Ireland always just does their own things. I mean,
mm, mm.
like as we record, they're rioting, and those riots are spreading, and it's
Yeah.
stop it, Northern Ireland. Just stop it. That's my message to them. So
Yeah,
I'd
yeah.
imagine that will go down well. Um,
But in
but we've
Scotland,
also got
sorry, the SNP seem. I know Plaid Cymru are obviously very passionate about Welsh independence and Welsh stuff, but the SNP are such a bigger thing in Scotland, right?
well, if you, I mean, like Scotland had a referendum for independence in
Mm,
2014, and it narrowly lost.
yeah.
The it narrowly didn't become independent. So if you think that then 50% roughly of people are going to vote for the Independence Party, which is the SNP, and 50% are going to be split between Scottish Greens, Scottish Tories, Scottish Labour, Scottish Labour, the SNP are going to win by miles and miles and miles and miles,
Mm,
which is what they did. And now it looks like they're going to be really challenged
mm,
there of the next year, but also the Senate. Reform are going to probably win a majority in the Senate next year, and they're going to win some seats in Scotland, which was previously unheard of. But you've also got, because devolution's also about mayors. Well, the
yeah.
London Mayor and the London Assembly, who's got more power than they used to have because it would all have been done in Westminster. You got Manchester and Birmingham, which are also nearly as powerful as we're talking about asymmetrical devolution. Hannah's
Mm,
exactly right with that term because London has proper devolution, and Manchester and Birmingham have slightly less. The West Midlands, not Birmingham, forgive me, have slightly less devolution juice. And then you get all the Metro mayors that we've just had. We've had Luke Campbell, who I used to watch boxing, is now the Metro Mayor of Hull, or that part of Yorkshire, I think. Um, it's
mm,
all a mess, and we're going to have more unitary councils and more mayors. Here in Kent, we're going to get a mayor at some point. Who knows when? Uh,
yeah.
I mean, it is all a mess because of the way it's come in. And once you've got these things, it's really hard to find the parliamentary will and time to change them
To make
again.
it all. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, the main thing is that for England and Wales, Westminster's still the crux of everything, really. Well,
Yes.
the big issues. Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
yeah. Okay, on to the next question. At Delgood86 asks, should AI be taught in schools? AI.
No.
I was going to give you a leading in, but you've just shouted no.
I mean, how would that even work? Like they currently have computer lessons. They're currently all still learning coding. Coding clubs are still the big things, but actually, AI is going to mean that we don't need to do coding. Really, in the future, it's going to say AI code me this, and they'll go here you go. What does teaching AI look like? I mean, is it a one lesson? Here's how to use Gemini, or are you going to talk about the inside workings of AI? Does anyone really know how they work? The curriculum, any curriculum changes take several years to go through the curriculum board. I don't even know how it works, but it takes years. I know that. I was a secondary teacher for 10 years. It takes a very long time for changes to come through. If someone had set an AI lesson 3 years ago,
Yeah,
it would be completely
yeah,
useless today.
yeah. We can maybe do the
Um,
history of AI.
the history of AI, and maybe the curriculum could be created by AI.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
hey, like, hey Google, can you tell me the history of AI? And be
yeah,
like, yes.
yeah.
Like it's. I don't know how that would work. I don't know what AI being taught means. What does being taught? We need our young people to be able to use computers properly,
Mhm,
and they currently have computing lessons, and they need to be flexible enough for AI to be an element that is included in conversations.
mm,
There is no way for AI to be you can't give someone an A star for their AI knowledge, right? That
mm,
can't be a thing. We can't have AI GCSE.
mm.
um
Well,
you
watch this
just
space. You never know. You never know. I mean, this week it's been in the news that teachers will be allowed to use AI for marking. That's that's come about this week. So I think more and more it's going to be part of our lives, whether
Mm.
whether we're keen for that or not. It just is. So, but you're right. It's just that we can't keep up with it. We can't
And then,
possibly
I
keep up with
mean,
it.
but like, look at the internet. Like the internet came into being during our schooling career, Diane. When
Hmm.
we were at school, the internet was slowly seeping in, and they would try to, like they would try to do these things, but nothing worked because I was better at the internet than the teacher because I wanted to go and look at my band. Their website, which was obviously like made on GeoCities or something, but I knew the internet better than they did because I was in because so and like, I'm sure it's the same with AI. I'm sure my kids know more about AI than I do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Well, hopefully we've answered that, Del. Good. 86. Um, finally, Sarah asks, how long, she's asking about how long changes take because we discussed about the paternity, the plans to implement up to 6 weeks paternity. She said she's got a baby due in October. How long do these things normally take? Eek.
Sarah,
Hmm.
I don't know what your plans are, but if you are to have another baby in 2 years, there's a chance that the paternity change will have happened. There is no chance, I'm afraid, that your wonderful, wonderful baby is going to come along with 6 weeks of paternity rights. At the moment, it's just a select committee thing. The government said it's in review.
Mhm.
So realistically, the timetable, it's not going to be in this session. They might bring a white paper in over the next year. If it's in review, we might get it next year. But I think more likely the actual parliamentary bill will start off in 2027, and the laws will come in 2028.
Yeah.
If everything goes smoothly, I would imagine that 2028 will be the implementation date for anything. Because don't forget, like we're talking, the employers need time
Mm.
to adjust their staffing strategies, for example. So it is going to be a slow bill.
Mm.
Um, but in review now means it's unlikely it could make into next parliament if it. So by next parliament, I mean in the next year, because every year there's a King's Speech, and everything's not finished by the King's Speech in the bin, and then they start off a whole load of new government bills, and it feels like we're going to get King's Speech in September or October.
Mm.
So we're going to have a whole new year then.
Mm.
A report.
Mm.
No, I think it is.
Mm.
I think we're going to be talking the King's Speech, the parliamentary year after that is what it's
Yeah,
going to be.
absolutely. But I mean, a top tip from listening to Tatton talk about his experience, I'd say definitely get, it is worth your partner just having a conversation with their employer to see if there are any flexibilities. It's always worth a chat. It's always worth an ask and see what you can do. And good luck with it all. Yeah.
Yes. No, let us know how it goes, Sarah. Would love to say hello to little Sarah. Um, yeah, that'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That have
Lovely.
brightened up my October.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. Let's move on to the main section. And this week, we've got to talk about spending, really, haven't we? We're recording slightly early. We're recording just ahead of Rachel Reeves getting up to do her whole spending review. But we have had quite a lot of spoilers this week already. Or not spoilers, they're, what are they? Little
Teasers,
teasers,
trailers.
trailers.
No, they're just announcements. They don't. That in the olden days they had the decency to leak things that were coming out. Now they just come and say them.
Yeah.
Like so, you get to the beginning and it's like there's nothing left.
Hmm. We know a lot. We know a lot, don't we? We know, I mean, the big one yesterday that springs to mind is all about Sizewell C. So, I mean, they're going big on clean energy, this government. Big
I mean,
on
like 15
mm,
billion.
yeah, yeah. It is a
And it was 15 billion for defense.
Mm.
And it was 1 billion a year for 1.25 billion a year for winter fuel. And science and tech. Peter Kyle is the science and tech guy, and he's quite techie, and he's really boring to watch when he's on the telly. But he was going around on Sunday doing all the shows, swanning about. Oh yeah, he said, I got my own money. Um, I,
Yeah.
I, I was I must admit, I was so bored by his interview. I can't remember how much money he
It's a
got.
lot of money. He got
Is that a lot of money?
he got, like, the biggest ever budget for science and tech. It's incredible. In fact, I'm gonna while you keep talking, I'm gonna look.
And then we got more money for kids on free school meals. Like,
Mm.
we don't know what you know right now because we are recording this before Rachel Reeves takes to her feet, which is because Lottie is on leave and it's particularly the worst possible time to be recording this podcast. But um, we know we've had these big banging bonuses for these places. We know NHS spending is going to go up as well because who even are you if you're not
Yeah,
raising NHS money? But I
absolutely.
mean, but NHS money, the NHS is a bottomless well. We could throw money and money and money and money and money down there, and it still wouldn't work the way I wanted to. Anyway, what we're going to focus on, what we'll be focused on, what you will be focused on, but we can't focus on, is where the pain's going to come.
Mm.
Somewhere's got to be cut. There's an economics term called opportunity cost,
Okay.
which means that when you spend a tenner on some on phone data. I said that because I've got nothing on my desk. I'm that unimaginative that I've gone with phone data. If you spend a tenner on phone data, you cannot spend the same £10 on post-it notes. You have to choose. You have to choose where you spend your money. So the opportunity cost of spending money on Sizewell C, of spending money on the NHS, is that you can't spend it somewhere else. So we cannot spend it on the police force. For example, there's talk about police funding taking a squeeze.
Mm.
And Yvette Cooper resigning. She won't resign. That's going to sound really silly when she's resigned by 20 years. Like it, it's difficult to balance things. What's the science tech figure, Diane?
86 billion.
86 billion.
Yeah.
What was it before?
Oh god, no, you're really challenging my
Well, but we only need
skills.
to know how much has gone up, don't we? Because if that's how much we spent, R&D, he was saying, it's talking about R&D. And Katie
Yeah,
was like,
yeah, R&D, but I have to say, there are people kind of pulling it apart, saying some of it's pre-announced, but in
yeah.
total, it adds up to 86 billion. It's really interesting how that they really dig down on this. The people who know these figures day in day out will say like, "Oh, well, that bit came from somewhere else, and that bit was, yeah,
Because what they want to come out with a big number.
yeah,
Right? So
they
you're
do."
gonna add in your AI budget and your, like school STEM classes budget, and you're gonna, just add in all kinds of bits of money
Mhm,
to
mhm.
to do it. And sometimes you've had governments count money twice, which
Yeah,
is very naughty.
mm,
So you count science teaching in both the science and tech number and the education number. But I don't think they're going to do that because they're not that dishonest. I don't think. Um, yeah. So ultimately, again, it's the Klarna thing is we're going to hear all of this and not be told how they're going to pay for it until the autumn. They're going to say a lot of things about because we've made the right choices
yes,
because I took the tough decisions. I can now do this. There's not many financial experts or financial figures that suggest the economy is doing much better now
no,
than it was.
no,
But she's going to lean on that a lot. Don't forget, there are three ways of increasing spending. One is to make cuts elsewhere. Two is to raise taxes. Three is to borrow. All of which are pretty unpalatable, and
and
all of which she said she won't do.
She said she won't do. She's got rules, isn't she? She's got rules and she's sticking by them. So, yeah. Mm. I'm still looking for what the science and technology budget was before. It's not helping. It's not helping.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. I mean, that's the backdrop
Yeah.
to it all.
But in essence, does this tell us how Labour are going to be for the rest of Parliament? Does this where they're spending their money? Is that really? Does that tell us a lot about policy?
That's the idea.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's, I don't know how true it is, but it's the idea, certainly. Because these are all long term. The idea of a spending review is to give departments more certainty. So it's for the rest of the parliament, 3 or 4 years, the rest of the parliament. And actually, several of these figures, these big bombastic figures they've been saying, 15 billion for Sizewell C, that's over 10 years.
Mm.
That's not a we're putting our hands in our pockets. Same with the defense money. Same with those nuclear submarines. It's 15 billion is the big number, but per
Okay.
year it's 2 or 3 or whatever. And so
Mm.
you compare it. Oh well, the school's budget is 60. I think it's around 60 billion, but that's 60 billion every single year.
Mm.
So anything, I mean, R&D, science and tech, 85 billion, sure, but how many years is that over?
Yeah.
And that obviously makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, the NHS is on nearly 200 billion
Yeah. Huge,
these
isn't it?
days.
Absolutely huge. But
180, I think.
yeah, and there's obviously there's another element to this, and we talked about reform as well in top posts. But there's an element that Labour have not had the first year that they probably wanted eh, in government. It's,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
they
there's this U-turn on winter fuel, and that's what it's about, isn't it?
so they've got to be really upbeat and positive about spending because the previous budget was pretty downbeat, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
I mean, they know there's only a certain amount of time you can play in the last lot.
Mm.
When you just won the election, it's clearly the last lot, probably. Whereas a year in, you've had control of the reins for a year, so you've got to start talking about the choices you've made being successful. You've just got to do it,
Yeah. Yeah.
even if the evidence isn't quite there.
Mm. Okay. Fab. Right. Let's move on to the crystal ball. Tatum, what is going to be coming up over the next week?
Um, it's Grenfell's anniversary again. I wasn't in a particularly good way anyway, but 8 years ago, that fire killed 72 people in their own homes as a result of cladding that was put up around the houses that wasn't safe, and it was legal to put up, and it's still legally on buildings, and it's an absolute disgrace. And at the time, I could hardly leave the house. It's just so awful. We are actually going to be talking quite a lot about Grenfell on the page after the anniversary,
Mm.
and I mean it matters.
Mm.
It really, so much of what we talk about comes and goes. A few billion here, a few billion there, whatever. Balancing. What happened to those 72 people and the survivors that night
Mm.
is unforgivable, and it's awful, and we must never let it happen again. But we're currently in a situation where it could happen today because of inaction from government, from councils, and it needs to change.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, it's yeah. So
Sorry, you
no.
can.
n-
What's your crystal ball, Dan?
No, absolutely. Well, next week, this is kind of simple politics, obviously, but also simple money. We will be leaning into another interest rate decision on the 19th, which is Thursday. Um, it's a really difficult one to call this time, I think. Previously, I think people have had a really good steer on what they have a vote. So all the top guys and girls at the Bank of England have a vote each time, and every time the interest rate changes, you get to hear like four voted to lower it, three voted to keep it the same. You hear what it is each time,
Mm.
and obviously we don't know, but there's lots of chat that it's going to be very tight this time because they've got to keep an eye on inflation. They've got to keep a big eye on inflation, and who knows? So we will bring you that news on Thursday, just after midday.
Well, that's exciting.
Mm,
Hmm.
yeah, but yes, because you can follow us over on Simple Money as well. So do have a look over there. We have an
Oh
alert.
yeah, that's great over there. Simple Money's great. You should follow us on Simple Money and Simple Politics. Basically, we're going to take over your entire feed, so enjoy that.
Yay!
Um, oh, and as ever, thank you so much for getting through all of this. It's been something of a roller coaster today.
It has.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
but there we go. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Would
Catch you next time, everyone. Thank you for listening. See you later.
bye 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 bye
Bye.
bye.